All right. Well, we all know that we are in the winter of discontent, and we all know that things aren't the way that they were meant to be. For those of us who are slightly older, it's nothing new. We've seen these sorts of troughs and desponds before. A different sort of trough, this one. An economic trough, and we are now seeing many businesses, in actual fact, or at least two businesses go down in the last 24 hours. Just simply because they are alleged that the electricity market is so dysfunctional at the moment, it cannot continue, and hundreds of people have lost their jobs as a consequence. The job anecdotal evidence would suggest that it's difficult to find jobs. There are people applying to be burger flippers at the moment, which wouldn't have thought as highly skilled, but that just to give you some indication. Although that would seem, I have to be honest with you, there are plenty of jobs down here in the South Island, particularly in the deep south, so I don't know. Perhaps people are just being selfish. They want to stay where they want to stay rather than go to where the jobs are. But also the reality is that our economy is sustained by trade. We are still very much an agricultural-based economy, with tourism adding, if you like, the cherry on top. And so if our farmers and our horticulturists and our vintners and are doing well, and our tourism operators, generally everything's working pretty well, thanks very much, but they are all under strain as well. Or are they? To give us the latest update on how the economic trade winds are treating New Zealand at the moment, but also particularly the rural economy, we're joined by Westpac economist Paul Clark on the state of the economy, and he joins us now. Paul, thank you so much for joining us. Lovely to have you on.
Yes, good morning, Michael.
That's true though, isn't it? New Zealand is still very much dependent upon our agriculture on a rural basis for the wealth that we can or cannot generate.
Well, it forms the backbone, I suppose, of the New Zealand economy, and it has a very special place, I suppose, in New Zealand. So I'd suggest that's probably true. It's also true, of course, that a lot of our exports are agricultural based. So yes, that would be the case.
Do we need to be reminded of this? Because you would assume that any time there's government or local government impost upon the rural community, and it makes it harder for them to produce, it is going to have an economic effect at the other end.
Well, it's like any other industry. There are challenges to produce more or to do better, and you operate within a I suppose a framework more than anything else. There are constraints to every industry, and there are opportunities as well.
Okay, so let's just go and have a look at the agricultural economy at the moment, and the traditional one. Let's talk about dairy first, because it vies with tourism in terms of generating export receipts for New Zealand and New Zealanders, and it has been underpinning a good part of our economy for the last, 20, 30 years. Is dairy looking up at the moment? Are we getting good prices? Is that likely to flow through into the towns and cities?
Well, certainly when we look at what's been happening in the auctions, and I think there has been an improvement. You saw the GDT auction on Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday morning, Tuesday overnight, Wednesday morning, rose 5.5% overall. That was the index, which certainly is welcome news. But I would also say it kind of moves around a little bit as well. So we've seen milk powders basically moving sideways. We've kind of seen fats increasing. So it's mixed. And a lot of that, of course, relates to fluctuating Chinese imports, and China is the key player in the dairy game, at least, as it is in other areas of agriculture.
Yeah, we're going to be talking after 11 o'clock on just this issue of our relationship with China. But I'm interested in what you've just said there. If the Chinese determine the dairy market now, are they that big a player for us?
Well, they are traditionally a big player, and they import significant quantities of dairy, and we sell dairy into China, so they're really important. However, that's different from product to product. So, things like whole milk powder and skim milk powder, China is a big player. But on other areas like fats and the like, we see buyers coming out of the Middle East and other Asian countries, and that helps to support those prices as well. So, Chinese demand is important, make no mistake, and the consumer in China consumer demand has been relatively weak, and that has basically put a cap on the amount of milk products that are consumed in that country. I should also point out, and I'm referring back to the report that we published yesterday, Chinese are also starting to become self-sufficient in some of these products as well, or there's a strive for self-sufficiency, so they're investing in their own production capacity, which is a bit of a concern going forward.
Well, that's actually, isn't that typical of New Zealand? We also don't just export dairy products there, we export the cows as well, or the semen, and in actual fact allow them to start up their own industry. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, we export a whole range of products to China, but not just China. It's in the case of cattle, we were selling beef into the US. In fact, the US is a big source of demand, and that actually at the moment is actually driving beef prices. We sell basically our lean trimmings, and the US manufacturers buy those lean trimmings and they mix it with their own ground beef to produce hamburgers. And the American economy is going so well at the moment that they want more beef trimmings. So that's been good for our industry.
The other thing, and then I'll take the other one, which is the traditional sheep and wool. What's the outlook like for them? We had Climate Change Commissioner Rod Carr on the show. Was it yesterday, day before? And he was talking about the diminution of the sheep flock in this country and how extraordinary it's been, and ironically how it's helping them in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. But is there a future for sheep and wool at all?
It's certainly true, and I'll only really speak about sheep meat. It's certainly true that the flock sizes have declined. There's been declining for decades, basically. And we're not the only country. You look at Australia, they've also had a decline in sheep numbers over a long period of time. It is also true, though, that Australia has recently seen a bit of a pickup in its sheep numbers, and that's in terms of the flock size. Our flock size has certainly declined, but we're sending that sheep into China, and China is by far the biggest market for sheep meat, and it basically imports about 400,000 tons, and we're a big player in that market. In fact, we're second only to Australia, and that the lead, for want of a better word, tends to change over time. At the moment, it's Australia are the biggest suppliers into that market, but in previous years it's been ourselves.